Hi there, Trevor Foley here from Linden Learning. Have you ever had that feeling? Someone comes to you and wants to speak to you. They tell you maybe they've got a problem and they're not quite sure what to do. And your brain starts to scramble for a good bit of advice. After all, that's what they came for, isn't it? If you can just find, that gem of insight that will put them on the path to a solution. You might have even felt the pressure. It's like your credibility as a leader or even a friend hinges on the quality of what you say next. And have you ever experienced that sinking frustration as their lack of enthusiasm for each of your brilliant suggestions becomes apparent? There always seems to be, maybe a niggly little objection or obstacle. You could easily fall into a round of the yes, but game, where each of your ideas is gently batted away. The objections come thick and fast, but they fall often into some familiar categories. Maybe it's a lack of time or resources. I would if I could, I just got too much on right now. Or maybe it requires someone else's approval. Absolutely. If it were down to me, unfortunately, Jenny wouldn't go for it. Or it relies on someone else doing their part. Sure, yeah, that could work. If I could rely on Jeff to do his part, but we all know what Jeff's like. Maybe the person predicts some undesirable consequence. Yes, that might be seen as favouritism, and the team's a little shaky at the moment. Or maybe the backstop of all yes buts. I lack the skills or confidence. Yeah, you'd be great at that, but it's just not me. Sometimes people don't want advice. They just want to be heard. They just want someone to acknowledge that they're struggling a bit, and they want to find a bit of comfort in knowing that they're not struggling in isolation. They just want a sympathetic ear. There are also some other issues with giving advice though. You can never understand the situation as deeply as them, and your advice just highlights that. And if you keep going, you might find the conversation becomes increasingly tense as they point out what you're missing. And you start to wonder whether they really want to improve things at all. Also, if your solution comes to you quickly and seems obvious, if you ever notice yourself saying something like, well, why don't you just? You're basically implying they're a bit dim. And that's the last thing that they need. Even if all the solutions are great and they're accepted, accountability now lies within the advice you gave, rather than with the person who wants things to change. This means, one, if it does work, they can't take credit for it. And two, if it doesn't, you risk taking the blame. Lastly, maybe most importantly, people are far more likely to commit to something when they've identified it for themselves. They retain ownership, they retain responsibility, and they retain motivation to see it through, even if things don't go smoothly straight away. Your well-meaning advice robs them of some of the key ingredients for their success. The way to give them back? A coaching approach.